Welcome to Maple Leafs Hot Stove Podcast, episode 104. I'm Nick Ashbourne, joined as always by Anthony Petrielli. Anthony, it has been a roller coaster based on the timing of our episode records. Last week, we were coming to everyone after three consecutive wins for the Leafs. It felt like you could say a lot of things. You could say, okay, this is a team that traditionally has struggled out of the gate. They're starting to play up to their talent a little bit more. Maybe that Pittsburgh game where they came back dramatically in the third period, that was a bit of a turning point. They're going to get their shit together. And that's not how things have
Th-
transpired. We've seen three losses since we last recorded, two of them to the Boston Bruins. I don't know how else to put it, but an appalling game against the Carolina Hurricanes where they're just kind of dominated territorially. And like, let's be honest, Carolina's really good at that. And it was the second day of back to back. You probably expected that the Leafs would lose that battle, but the degree to which they got crushed was a whole different thing. Like there's
They got it. They got embarrassed against
yeah,
Carolina.
there's getting beat and there's getting embarrassed, and I think it's fair to say they got embarrassed there. Yeah, just you could argue. I felt kind of annoyed, to be honest, coming out of the second Boston game when a lot of the talk, like Berube and Max Domi, the quotes were like, "Oh well, like we liked the way we finished." I don't know. Like, I don't know what to say about that. Like, that obviously that game could have gone differently if they didn't give up a couple of shitty goals off the top. Like, there's a world where that's a much more competitive game. But at this point, it just doesn't feel like silver linings time. Um, Anthony, where do you want to start with your Toronto Maple Leafs very much in turmoil as we record here on November 12th?
Oh, now they're my Toronto Maple Leafs.
I'm
They're
totally
not yours
fine.
anymore. 3 game
Yeah,
losing
they're just
streak. You're done.
as much as I have for our YouTube viewers an angelic beam of light coming down. I'm no longer feeling that warm glow of the Maple Leafs, just abandoning ship.
Yeah. So when we last recorded, it felt like things were finally starting to trend in a direction that they should, and then obviously the next 3 games that did not happen. And not only did it not happen, but I would say quite a few. I think all three of them to some degree have been disheartening performances in various capacities. I'd actually say the second game against Boston was probably their best showing of the three. Like, yeah, I'm pretty confident. Like, having kind of gone back through each game, I'd say it was like, we'll get to that. But, overarching, I'm kind of reminded, like, this time last year, or this many games last year, they had 3 more points than they do now. And they're 500. Like, I see all the stuff that's like jumping shift, and we're gonna qualify this. Like, I'm not sitting here saying everything's okay, because I already see Nick's face. Like, well, the way they look. Like, I agree. I'm mainly saying like there's still a little time. Like, I'm not ready to say like it's getting late early. Like, there's still quite a bit of runway here, but the first like checkpoint is quickly approaching, which we've talked about a bunch, which is American Thanksgiving. And to me, if you're sitting at American Thanksgiving, like 4 or 5 points out of a playoff spot, like, you need to consider something drastic. Like, it's probably the main question I'm getting to, and we'll get to Craig Berube as part of this, because a lot of people think that the roster is just poor. I don't. I'm not ready to look at a roster that, by and large, not just us, but the entire hockey community looked at going into the season and said, like, that's definitely a playoff team. Like, you weren't finding much of anybody saying that's not a playoff team. I actually don't think I saw anybody. I'm pretty online. I didn't see a soul say like these guys aren't making the playoffs. Like, said like they're gonna be in tough and like, da 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 da, but not, this is not a playoff team. And we're a month and a half in, not, basically barely. Honestly, it's actually not really, considering the season started what, October 6th, October 8th, and we're November 12th, so it's not even a full month and a half. And you see a lot of guys not living up to their potential, I would say. And we'll get to that whole Craig Berube piece. I think I think the things we kind of got to go through though are like you get through each game at like a little bit of high level. The first Boston game disappointed me because McAvoy and Lindholm were not playing, and you're at home, and that felt to me like game felt to me like the an undermanned Bruins team came in there and outworked them. Like that's what it looked like. Sometimes when you're missing guys, and we've seen the Leafs on the other end of it, every team does this. Like you're missing a few guys, so guys like step up and they work hard and they dig in. And that felt like that Bruins team did that, and the Leafs didn't match it. And then they just had like a series of like brutal breakdowns and they lost. And then the Carolina game, they just got like straight up dominated. We use the word embarrassing. I stand by that. Like that was an embarrassing game. And then this last game, I think this one had the most to it because to me, like Stolar's was really bad.
I mean, yeah, two of the goals that happened out of the chute were indefensible goals.
And like I know people are looking at the PK, but look at the two goals they scored on it to start. It's like off Pavel Zacha's leg. And like that's not a repeatable goal. Like Boston's not sitting there today being like, "Hey, let's work on that play again." Where like
We
Pavel
just
Zacha's
blasted off his leg in the
leg,
slot.
yeah, and it like deflected perfectly in. Like like you could say, yeah, sure, he's in the vicinity. I mean, they're trying to run something, obviously, but the pass was not there. Hence, it hit his leg. Like it's there's a degree of luck to that. And then the Lindholm goal, the goal was just terrible. Like it's a one-legged wrist shot from outside the top of the, like if you drew a line straight down the rink from face-off circles on down, just straight, he was outside that. Like he was between the face-off circle and the boards and took a one-legged wrist shot far side and it went in. And there was like a point later on in the third period where McAvoy actually stepped into a shot, and then Mike Johnson on the broadcast was like, "Oh, it's like the goal that they scored earlier, just a wrist shot glove, except Dennis Hildeby gloved it, no rebound." And then the Steve's goal is just awful. Like that's just a terrible goal. Just there's nothing to really say, and like so they're immediately behind the eight ball. And I felt like they did claw back. Like the Pasternak goal drives me insane. It's like you're down 3-1, you try to get it, and you just give up the sloppiest breakaway. And it was right after you gave up the sloppiest 2-on-1. But you look at that period after that, it's like Nick Waugh had a breakaway, hit the post. The Leafs had a 2-on-1 with Steven Lorentz like fanned on the puck and like banged a stick on the ice after. These aren't necessarily the guys you want having those chances.
Yeah, Steven
But
Lorentz was the biggest offensive threat through the first period and a half of that game.
but Boston gets those two chances, they cash one. The Leafs get those two chances, they don't even register a shot on net. And otherwise, I thought the Leafs carried that play for that period. Like I thought the Leafs were just, I mean, they were losing, they should be carrying the play, but by and large, like they put a lot of pressure on. And then finally they get the goal to end the period. They get another one early. And I felt really good about their game. And then Domi does what he does. And then Boston scored an actual nice power play goal. I'll give them credit on that. And, from that point forward, it's like, they pushed. It wasn't like they quit. They didn't quit. But it was a big ask at that point to make up the two goals. I went back and I watched the game again today, and I came away from it sitting there like there's a million little things in it, but I overarching was wondering if Max Domi doesn't take that penalty, do the Leafs keep applying pressure and tie this game? That was how I kind of felt about that one.
It's possible. Like it's that's not a crazy thing to think, but I don't think it's fair to assume that would happen either.
No, I'm not assuming. I think that there were positives to build off of from the second half of that game, but just like ticks me off that you start so poorly in that game again. Right? They start the Matthews line, first shift, hemmed in. Like, they took the penalties. I didn't think that the Benoit one, I thought the Benoit call was soft, but the other two weren't. You know, Philip Myers is apparently untouchable in the lineup. Another bad penalty. Even Benoit, like even if you said okay, the penalty was whatever, the power play goal to ice the game, while it was a nice sequence to actually score, like there's nothing to say about Hildeby. I mean, Benoit doesn't know how to raise the puck on a clear. Like you're NHL, like grown man, NHLer, and you can't raise the puck off the glass and out. Like that puck should have been cleared. Like if you're like people are like, oh, Derek Lalonde in the PK. It's like, what do you want him to do? Like you be like, can't let Lindholm take a wrister off one leg from the boards?
Yeah.
Like Simon Benoit, like if I'd sit there and be like, well, what do you want me to do? Simon Benoit had the clear, he couldn't raise the puck.
Some of these, like when the goals are given up that are that bad, and then we start talking about, how high the Leafs rank in goals against. And there's a lot that goes into that, right? Like a lot of discussion, for instance, about all the breakaways given up. It's a big part of it. But some of it and the rush chances. But when you're talking about like that Lindholm goal or that Stees goal, like these are the type of opportunities that are actually impossible to prevent. Like you might prevent that individual opportunity, but like I've got news for you. Over the course of the game, and your opponent
Yeah,
will be able to throw junk at the net. Like you can be the
for
best
sure.
defensive team in hockey, and your opponent is going to be able to create some garbage like that. So like, yeah, I do think you have to kind of separate out where it's goaltending, where it's defense, and yeah, that's where it's kind of disheartening for this team because it feels like you can split it all these different ways, but in each bucket is incompetence. Like there's no bucket that you're feeling good about. Like the penalty kill, to be honest, I don't think that should keep them up at night. I don't think that that's like the
No,
the thing that's dragging this team down. Like they gave up those goals against Boston, as you pointed out. There's the skate, there's the Lindholm one. Like, yeah, the Pasternak one, again, you could quibble if you want, but like that is kind of going to happen at a certain point.
but
And
raise the puck. Raise the
yeah,
puck. Just raise the puck and get it out. Like I'm sorry. Like
but
just
Myers and Benoit, like that's just not a good enough pairing for your penalty
no.
kill. It's just not.
No, and so that's where it leaves us. Now the Leafs are 500. Obviously, they're on a 3-game regulation losing streak. That this is their second 3-game losing streak already of the year. And my biggest concern is you lost a home and home in regulation to Detroit. Buffalo took 3 out of 4 against you, and now you lost another home and home with Carolina in between to Boston in regulation. And that's how you actually miss the playoffs. Like you're losing to division rivals and they're cleaning you out. So that means in those 6 games, division rivals have taken 11 out of a possible 12 points against you. And you've taken 2. That is actually how you get in trouble. Like you could stomach that against Seattle Kraken or Utah or name any other team in the West, doesn't matter. Even though it's nice to beat Edmonton and Vancouver at all times. But when you're dropping all of that to what should be non-playoff teams in your own division, like you actually put yourself in trouble. Like the concernometers back up because I mean, if you just told anyone logically going into the season, if you looked at the calendar and said, "Hey, like see these 6 division games the Leafs are about to play to start the year, they're going to win 1 out of 5 and it's going to be an over or 1 out of 6 and it's going to be an overtime." You'd be like, "That's like borderline impossible. Like it just can't happen." And then which is kind of like the roundabout way of bringing back to the second Boston game where it's like, yeah, I liked a lot of the things in the second and third period, but it doesn't excuse the start. Like why is the start so poor? And against Carolina, even the first game against Boston, it's like what? Like you thought because you beat Utah and you came back against Pittsburgh, like you could just come in and like coast your way to victory. And so I think like we're seeing like those themes like pretty consistently. And then, we're talking about the goaltending, and I'm very curious how much of it's like the chicken versus egg debate, but it's like what came worse, the bad goaltending or the bad defense? because I watch them and it's like they have no confidence in him to make a save right now, which is fair, and he's earned that now. And it's really hard to play defense if you don't trust your goalie to make a save. Like that really messes with you on like in the flow of a game and what you're gonna do and potentially the gaps you're gonna manage or however you're gonna play certain things drastically changes when you don't think the goalie is gonna make a save. And at the same time, you could say, well, they're bleeding chances. Maybe if they stop doing that, the goalies would be better. I'm sure it's somewhere in between, but I don't think that they're mutually exclusive things. Like I think the defense is in part struggling because the goaltending behind them looks terrible.
I agree with that. I do think, though, a big part of what the defense has been struggling with has been the rush chances the other way, which to me doesn't necessarily feel endemic of the lack of confidence in the goaltending issue. Like a lot of
But
those,
a large part of that's also not their fault. Like that's the forwards.
yeah, it's not necessarily the defenseman, but those are mistakes that are happening in the offensive zone and in the neutral zone. That's not how they're kind of defending the net. But no, I think, it is, these things do bleed into each other. Like I'm sure there's an aspect of the goaltenders getting frustrated and worn down and kind of losing it a little bit mentally when they're having to deal with all the bullshit. And there's, as you said, there's an aspect of defensemen and, the whole team not being confident and playing tight and feeling like they're not going to get bailed out. Cause like you are going to fuck up. Like you are going to give up opportunities the other way. You're going to give up grade A chances. And, Stolarz, to his credit, he was there to bail them out a lot last season. And like, has their team in front of him played worse? I would say so. Even though, last year wasn't good from a kind of pure possession standpoint, we know it was better from a structure and avoiding the grade A chance standpoint. And so, like, it is, you're right. Like it's difficult to kind of tease these things out, but at the same time, I think it's also fair to say that both are happening to some degree independent of each other, even though they're related as well, right? Like I don't think that their bad defense has to do with the fact Stolarz is giving up way more long distance bullshit than we saw last season. Like that's good defense that you're forcing, unthreatening shots from the point. And I don't necessarily think that, yeah, lack of confidence in Stolarz is causing gaffes in the neutral zone and in the offensive zone that are allowing some of these odd man rushes and some of these breakaways.
I do it. This is the hardest thing for us to talk about because it's the hardest thing for anyone to talk about unless you're a player on the team or a coach on the staff. But I do wonder how much of what happened with Stolarz and the Seattle game and his comments after have impacted, his play, his confidence, like anything that like he's been terrible since he spoke up. Yeah, like we can all see that. Like that objectively is true. He has been terrible since he opened his mouth. And we kind of said it at the time. I said it, I thought it was interesting that basically like every single ex-player was like he's not wrong, but he shouldn't have said it. Like he shouldn't have come out like that. And I mean, now you put a spotlight on yourself when you do something like that. Like it's fine if you're gonna come out and call guys out, like that's fine. But you have to be sick if you're gonna do that. Like you have to then come out and be the guy. And he's done the exact opposite. And I'm not sure if like maybe he just like didn't know what kind of situation he was putting himself into. Like just like the heat of the moment got to himself and he, got to him and he didn't think it through fully before going out. But, like he called out pretty directly a guy who's like top 5 in the league in scoring right now. And we said at the time, I was like, Nylander is like has like 2 points a game and like that's the guy he's calling out. And I don't think Nylander is like a guy who's gonna, hold a grudge or make things uncomfortable for him or anything like that. Nylander probably cares less than anybody else to this moment. But you call out that guy and then you come and you play the way that you have since then, and like there's no beating around the bush there, Nick. That's a tough tough look. Like that is really hard to ignore.
Yeah, no, I mean, though, like the correlation is strong and it is real. And like you said, I think we said at the time, it's a bit uncomfortable for a player who doesn't necessarily have the cachet to do that. And there's a lot of things that are going into how he's playing. Now he's got some kind of injury. We don't know exactly what's going to happen as a result of that. But there
If
was
he's
also,
back immediately, is there any part of you that will think like maybe he was primarily just upset?
well, it's funny on the broadcast, and they're like, "Man, he's got to come back to the bench." Like they were really kind of like grilling him for like not
Yeah,
coming back
when
to the
he didn't
bench.
come out to start the period, Mike
Yeah,
Johnson was like he's stewing back there
yeah, they were.
basically, right? Like
Yeah, they were not happy with him there. I mean, that there is a world where it's a fake injury. Like fake injuries happen. We'll never know necessarily,
yeah.
but and part of the story is, and this part is a bit difficult to talk about as well because it's hard to prove. But there is the fact that he is carrying like a far heavier burden than he traditionally has, and
Yeah,
the fact
he's a
that like
tandem goalie.
Caden Primo was a absolute disaster. And again, like you can say, oh, the Leafs won 2 out of 3 games, but like they didn't play him in other games because
Yeah.
they knew it wasn't going to go well. And so like that resulted in Stolarz playing even more. The flip side of that is like this is a guy who they've used as the primary goalie in the playoffs before. So like he has been, but again, very short period of time, like not a lot of proof of
Yeah.
concept there. And so you've got a goalie who is a little bit older, not vastly old, but on the wrong side of 30, just hasn't really done this, has not been durable in his career. And suddenly Joseph Woll's absence results in him playing a ton. And again, we can't definitively prove like, oh, he's not up to that. He can't do it physically, but he hasn't done it before. And then when he does try to do it, it didn't work out. So that is what it is. Like that could be a factor in this that is, worth at least a decent amount of speculation, even if I can't like prove that to you in a court of law. Like it does seem likely to be a decent factor here.
Yeah, I mean at best he's showing why he's viewed as a tandem, like a tandem goalie. Um he hasn't done anything to quell that notion, or if anyone was sitting there thinking, oh, like Stolarz will just run with it, like maybe they could even use a different goalie as, a trade chip or something to fix something else in the roster. And the answer is no. Like we're sitting here hoping that Joseph Woll comes back. He just played a full game today, day that we're recording this. They lost in overtime, 3-2. I'm hopeful for Woll. I think Woll's good. We said it a million times. Like again, he led them in starts last year. He's fully capable of stealing a game. They haven't had a goalie steal. Really, have they had a goalie steal a single game yet? Like if I think through their schedule, there's not one where I'd sit there and say like, "Wow."
I think they've given up at least 2 goals in every game but one. It's something like that. Like they really have, they haven't
Yeah,
had a shutout yet. And a goalie
uh,
can steal a game and give up 2 goals, but I'm just saying like they haven't had like a
no.
great goaltender
The
performance at any point.
the idea of a shutout right now seems impossible. Impossible.
It would
And
require a lot of things to come together. I think it would require a lot of help from the posts to make a shutout happen, an undue amount of help from
and
the posts
and
and some
so
inaccurate shooting.
and so on that end, Chris Tanev's been out. They haven't allowed less than 3 goals in a game without Tanev. And I mean, their defense looks like borderline in shambles without him, which is crazy to me. And I don't think Jake McCabe might miss him more than anybody, to be honest with you. Like I
Well, yeah,
see,
because McCabe's got to play on his offside and with Simon Benoit. Like that is a
yeah,
pretty big downgrade to
and
playing on the right side that you want to play on with Chris Tannen.
and we talked about this before. It's like I see him trying to push things and make plays and make things happen because I think he's frustrated. Like I think he's like understanding of sort of where they're at and what's going on, and you could see him trying, but then it just one, it hasn't been good enough, full stop. And then two, there's like potentially a little bit of overcompensating going on. And, even just beyond his play, like Tanev is such a calming presence. Like how much gum does that guy go through a game? Just sitting there always chewing, just a completely different heartbeat out there. Like it's as slow as it gets. And, you know, I think that has a calming effect throughout the entire, at least the defense that they missed. And then obviously the gap between Tanev and Philip Myers, who's replacing him right now, is approximately the size of the Grand Canyon. So, you know, like the domino effect there, it's like, I do think that all that to say is I do think that there are a few things where you could say, look, like Tanev should come back and like he's already been on the ice and like, you know, hopefully it's sooner than later. And Wool's obviously playing games right now. Like there are some things where you could sit there and say, look, like they're gonna get a few guys back. These are important guys. There's, you know, a lot of guys that aren't necessarily playing well right now. You know, there's a lot of meat on the bone there to take from it. But then there's the flip side, which I think now we get to the flip side of it.
Yeah, I mean, there again, I think I've said a version of this before where the reason you expect them to get better is because you have in your head that these players are better, not that there's anything that they're showing right now that you kind of feel like they're building on. It's not like, oh, this is just about around the court. Like I think, for instance, I was thinking a lot today about, Nick Waugh and Dakota Joshua and sort of like the idea of this team being, equivalent to last year's team in quality, kind of hinging on okay, we're going to have three lines that actually matter here and we're going to have talent spread out. And, again, Michelli, I think, has been more interesting than either of them, and more productive. Like those guys haven't done anything from a productivity standpoint. And so, like, I could say, listen, Nick Waugh and Dakota Joshua have been competent players in this league. They have real qualities that a hockey team wants. There's a reason why people are so happy they're able to get Waugh out of the Marner thing. Joshua's a little bit more of a controversial ad, but he's had success in the past. And then I look at those two, and like this is the foundation of most of the third lines they've run. Not all of them. They've at times that's been sort of a fourth line because they've been doing weird bullshit, to be honest. But like this is the foundation of the third line, and the third line is a foundation of why this team should be able to be, as good as other groups in Marner's absence, essentially. And I'm not the person who's like, this is all because Marner's gone, because like there's some crazy ass takes in that realm that don't necessarily need to go into. But when you're looking at Joshua and Waugh together, like they've been outscored, I think it's 410, and then on a per 60, they've got 1.79 goals for, and their expected goals for are 1.8. They just don't, they haven't done anything. They're not, and like I know that sometimes they take difficult minutes. I know that there's mitigated factors that go into that, but like that's not having a third line that matters, and they're not playing like it. And so the only thing that you kind of hang your hat on, and again, I'm picking them out just because they're part of the concept of what
Yeah.
this particular Leaf team is supposed to be. But like the only reason to think that more is coming is just that they're not this shitty. But like it would feel more comforting if you had some kind of underlying stuff where you're like, oh, these guys are getting unlucky, like these guys around the bend, it's just going to go in for the more yada yada yada. Like it's hard to find what would be encouraging, I guess.
So here was my hope for the season, like going into the year, kind of how I viewed things. Like, yes, you lost a legit top line forward. So one, partly just hoping that Matthews plays better to hedge it. Didn't particularly have a strong year last year relative to his standards. And so you sit there and say, well, if you're actually getting the elite 1C that you think you should be getting, that would fix quite a bit of the things that you think are wrong. That hasn't happened. But then the second part that I really hope to kind of see from more of a team concept is that they really worked to create four lines that could come in waves and control play more. And last year, I felt like they knew they were talented. They were. And they still are, but like last year, obviously they had more, at least from a high end standpoint. And they played like this a lot under Sheldon. They played like it under Berube as well last year, but just with like a better defense and better goaltending tandem. But it was kind of like they knew they could get away with murder, and they often did, right? Like they'd play games, and how many games would you sit there and say like they got outshot and they won? They probably didn't deserve to win, but like, their power play's sick or something like that. It's like Nylander had two and it was fine and it all worked out, or Marner, whoever. Like one of the guys stepped up, had a night. The team didn't play particularly well as the concept of a team, but they just had so much talent to overcome it, and they did. And what I was hoping to see this year is, in the absence of some of that high end talent, that they respect the process more. They pay more attention to it. They say, like, we need to start doing, like, what makes Florida so good is that they play a brand of hockey that's like their shit team, except they have all really good players. But they play like the way Mike Babcock coached the Leafs when he first got here and they tanked for Austin Matthews. Like everything's in deep. Everybody's like knows where to be. Like just the pressure schemes, like all this. Like they have like talented guys playing like dogs. And the Leafs are the exact opposite, or they have been. And so what I was hoping is the offset of like, hey, like we have to understand that we're a less talented team. Like we can't keep doing things the same way that we've done them. Like we have to change our team a little bit to match the realities of our roster. And by way of doing that, like we have to respect the process more of not wasting dump-ins on forechecks and guys actually winning battles and getting pucks out and all of these little things that just add up over the course of a game, because you don't have enough guys now to just say like, let's go out and, dominate a shift or two or have an unbelievable power play that gets us out of murder. And so like part of me, it's like you look at the first Boston game and the Carolina game, and it's like Willie probably scores both of those plays actually pretty consistently, right? The shot in the slot that he missed immediately, and then the rebound right to him with the empty net that hits both bars. Both of those plays are usually a goal, let alone he misses 0 for 2. And then obviously he had the breakaway-ish play, the one-on-one against the goalie where he slid it on the backhand. And then at the very end of that game, Knies had a chance, which I still have not computed what he was doing in front of the net against Brandon Busey, where he didn't even record a shot on net. But like you would generally expect Knies to cash that in. But I'm kind of sitting here going like, good, I'm happy you guys lost. Like you can't keep like BSing your way out of this. Like you need to fundamentally change the way that you play. And so I sit and I look at the struggles, and it's like, if you listen to Craig Berube a bunch of times, like, we didn't do this last year, we didn't do that last year, and he's constantly referencing last year. And I'm sitting here in my mind going, fuck last year. Completely different team, completely different hierarchy, completely different setup. Like you weren't looking going, I need a goal, let me put Nylander up with Matthews and Knies last year. It didn't even cross your mind. You ran the Marner Matthews Knies line, and then you had 45 goal John Tavares or William Nylander playing with John Tavares on the second line. And that was it. And you would just run them out and hope that they score. It's completely different dynamic now. And so I'm really disappointed. And then how much time do we talk about the lineup to start the year? And think about what he did when Lawton went out. Puts Michelli up with Matthews and Knies, and basically the thought process there is like budget Marner. I think we can agree on that, right? It's like small playmaking winger. We hope he's a good passer. And then the McMahon, Tavares, Nylander line, which is like basically a carryover from last year. And then he didn't even have Nick Waugh on the third line. He had him on the fourth line so that he could put together a line with Domi, Joshua, and Robertson, which was just a shittier version of McMahon, Domi, Robertson. So he basically just said, here's the exact same top nine. It's just our first line and our third line are going to be actively crappier versions than what we ran last year. And then the same guys being like, we didn't do this last year. I'm like, it's irrelevant. Last year is dead. It's dead in the water.
Yeah, no, it is interesting how he's framed so many things around that. And it does feel like he's getting defensive in that people are starting to question. And again, this stuff, sometimes it gets questioned too quickly or too often or with too little information. But people are questioning, like, are the players bought in on what Berube wants to do? Because right now, the way the team is performing is not in line with his vision. This is a team that is giving up nearly the most goals in the NHL, scoring nearly the most goals in the NHL, being called immature by Tavares and the way that they're playing. Like, this is the exact literal opposite of what Berube wants to be. He wants to talk endlessly, like to the point where I get unbelievably bored about him talking about directness and straight lines and simple plays. Like he wants to talk to you about that shit until your ears fall off. But like that's not that his team has not done that. They've not been a team that plays a simple, effective, tough, quote unquote hard to play against. Again, like all these cliches you could throw out there, hard, like are the Leafs hard to play against right now? Like
No,
not
no,
even close.
no,
Like
no.
they are one of the easiest teams to play
Come
against
on.
in the entire league right now. Like you're going to come down and have a shootout against a team that is worse at having shootouts than it used to be. Like
Yeah.
you're going to have a
Y-
shootout and be like,
y-
oh, I'm only worried about one of their lines, especially with Matthews potentially hurt right now.
You're gonna have the puck a lot. You're gonna get a couple breakaways. Actually, that was probably the thing that upset me most of all things. Like their PK went 3 for 6 last year or last night, but it was the Pavel Zacha breakaway on one right through the neutral zone where he didn't score. But that was actually the play that upset me the most because that's just a terrible breakdown in the neutral zone by a PK, like just awful. But the um like going through it, like to your point, it's like at some point you have to coach the team that you have. And I don't know if he's doing that. Like it's feeling a bit like square peg round hole right now in terms of what he's trying to get them to do and what they're not doing and how they're,
But it's
coming
kind of interesting
together.
because you thought again, and injuries have played a factor in this, but I don't really want to let the team off the hook on that too much. But like you would have thought that in theory, this group, with the addition of Waugh, with the addition of Joshua, Michelli definitely not fitting this description. But like there's a world where this is like you take Marner out, and like this is a more it's still not a perfect fit for, Berube's style or whatever. We could have said that last year and we did at certain points. But like there's a world where kind of as you were describing, it is more of a team concept. It is more of a meat and potatoes. Like you could argue that last year was an even quote unquote worse fit for theoretically what he was trying to do, but then the results were what they were. And goaltending is a big part of all the things we're talking about now. Like it's overarching. Last year they had elite goaltending. This year they've had dog shit goaltending, and that is seismic. Like it's boring to just say that and be like, well, that's the reason,
Yeah.
or and like it's not just that, but like that is underlying everything for sure. But I would argue last year they weren't really a perfect fit for what he wanted to do. That's partly why he was a bit of a strange coach to bring in. But you might say like, oh, maybe he can give them that element that they don't seem to have on paper. And then this year they have a little bit more of it, maybe, but they're still not a perfect fit. And then the bottom seems
But
to have fallen out of.
but year one you get two things. One, you get the residual Sheldon Keefe, which you could say whatever you want about him and hey, I'm not sitting here longing for Sheldon Keefe by at all, actually. But tactically, he was pretty good, at least in the regular season. It fell apart in the playoffs, and he showed himself to be a rookie coach by and large throughout his playoff time in Toronto. But in the regular season, he was tactically sound. And so when you take over from someone, you kind of inherit a little bit of that, right? Like it took him a long time to start stomping that out of them. But to that point, they had given themselves a good cushion. Like they became a worse possession team as the season trended last year. And so I think a portion of that beginning is like he's just inheriting from what Keefe did, and it's still kind of ingrained in them. And so he benefited off of that in a strange, bizarre way. And then the second part is just like the natural, like new coach bump. So like you're getting the new coach bump, you're getting some like residual, like Sheldon, like actual, like tactical ability. And then, the simplicity of Berube, I think, kind of meshed well with everything because it was a team who's very much in their own head, kind of in shambles. But so him just being like, yeah, just keep it simple in a strange way is actually good in that scenario because you don't need guys explaining things to you all the time. At some point, you just need like some simplicity and directness. But now we're starting to see like the full scale of it, and they just look confused, disconnected. I mean, you could go a million different ways. And now it's like Matthews might be hurt. And I was thinking about this, like, well, what are you going to do with the lines? Like, are you going to blow them all up again? Like, is this like the seventh time he'll already have done it? And they've played what, 17 games? Like, how is that going to be good? And he's just done it so many times already that you're kind of sitting there. It's like, look, you're naturally going to change lines. All these coaches change lines, but he hasn't really like built anything or done anything with any sort of long-term view where you're
Yeah.
sitting there saying
It's
like,
not like
look,
he's built a portfolio of options that he can draw on later. He's just like run through a bunch of things that haven't worked, basically. And the players are responsible for that to some degree. But often when you're switching lines over the course of the season, like you're experimenting, you're like, oh, that's something against a certain type of team I might try, or like it's good to know that those guys have a little chemistry. I don't know if I want to do that every night, but maybe I can do that sometimes. And this season has just been kind of like an exercise in desperately grasping at straws. Like, what have we really learned? Like, Nick Robertson can survive more in the top six than maybe we thought.
I like Nick Robertson so far.
Sure.
Big Nick Robertson guy. Yeah,
uh,
he's been good. Like not even criticizing. Like he genuinely
yeah.
has been as
I
good
like,
as
and but that's maybe the closest thing we've learned. Yeah, no, like John Tavares has still got it. Matthew Knies, can play with. I don't know. We knew what he could do. He's more of a playmaker this year in a way that sometimes has been interesting. But like, there's not a lot that's like you could say from their lineup formations thus far. It's like this is something we can take forward and lean on at some point in the future. Like you're kind of still building from ground zero, even though we are, a fifth of the way into the season. That doesn't mean the season is totally going to shit, but like a lot of other teams in the first fifth of the season have learned something about what works for their team and for their lineup. I don't really think the Leafs have done that.
yeah, I mean, if you were in a must win situation with a fully healthy lineup right now, what could you really look at with certainty? Like you would probably say Matthews and Knies are playing together, and then Tavares is the 2C.
Yeah,
Bobby
I mean, I
McMahon's
would
probably on
do
the wing.
Tavares Nylander, but like I guess you could make an intellectual argument for Nylander on line
Yeah,
one.
I mean, I would too. I'm saying like I don't think that they know though. I don't think they know the answer. Like they might be sitting there saying like, no, we need to load up the top line and like trust in the big dogs. And I mean, they were doing that as early as last week. And so, like the things you would basically lock in would be like Matthews and Nyes and McMahon, Tavares,
McCabe
and then
Tanev, I think.
yeah. And then you could maybe say Joshua and Wah, but I don't think it's been good enough to the point where you could say like lock that in, like nothing to see here. And then I kind of like look at some of these guys and say, like, I think that there's specific things that you should be doing that you're not doing, or you're not doing it nearly enough. And then like one thing we've talked about that like I want to kind of continue to reiterate because I think it's important is they still to me look like they're searching for like the soul of the team. Basically, like it's a pretty soulless group out there. And it was reinforced to me in the past 3 games watching Zadorov on Boston in the sense that let me finish that thought. In the sense that like Bruins fans watched that and went like that guy's a Boston Bruin. Like that is a Boston Bruin. Nikita Zadorov fully like embodies like things that they like. And they play to it. And I'm not saying I don't think that Boston team is good. Like I think they're going to fall from grace. They're on a heater right now. All these things. But you can see like an identity that they're trying to trend back to. And through that. And I look at the Leafs and I say like who is a Toronto Maple Leaf? Like, who do you look at there and say, like, that guy's a Leaf?
I mean, Nylander, but
And what? And
but
so, like, the definition of him
you
being
can't
the
build the
Leaf,
structure around Nylander. Like he's a whole different animal. Like he's
the
not someone who can be that
the soul of your team can't be this guy that you're like, he's
who's
so far
unhinged.
above the rest of it and like doesn't give a shit about anything else going on around him. Like, I think he cares about the game. I'm not saying he doesn't care about the game or getting better. Like, he works at his craft. You can tell. Like, his progression throughout his career has been very, very significant. So when I say he doesn't care, I don't mean like about hockey. I mean like he doesn't care about anything going on around him. Like he's not a guy who's gonna like pick up the pulse of the team and go out there and be able to change a game other than with scoring or doing something offensive. Like he's not like you're not, and nor should they have to look at him for that. Like they shouldn't have to do
I
that kind of
mean,
thing.
I think that the hope is that Knies would at some point be that. It doesn't hasn't felt like that. Has it? And I'm not out here trying to criticize Knies' play because he's made some pretty nifty
Why?
plays this season.
I don't think
But
he's above, reproach there. Like he's been good
no,
offensively. He's actually exceeded my expectations in general, like production wise. But physicality wise, it's essentially been non-existent.
well, I feel like if he plays on a line with Marner and Matthews, he's like, oh, I gotta go to work for these boys. But then when he's on a line where it's like him, Matthews, and Robertson, then like the hierarchy of that changes a little bit, and I think it changes the way he plays.
I think he's a young guy who's already had a few concussions and he's playing like it, physically speaking. And I get it to some degree. I'm not sitting here saying like Knies needs to go out and put himself in danger. Obviously not. But there's a way to be physical where you're not putting yourself in danger. And there's a way to finish checks. And, like one of his injuries last year was trying to hit Marchenko and bouncing off of him. And yeah, he just looks to me like he wants to preserve himself, and which is important. I mean, like the Leafs need him. Like they can't have him just like running around and getting hurt. Like Brady Tkachuk's out right now for Ottawa, and actually his brother is also out for Florida. And like those are guys that play like a bit more rambunctious. But like once in a while, you need to serve notice, and that doesn't necessarily have to be like fighting Zadorov in that situation of like what happened the past two games against Boston. But you could go out and run someone yourself, right? Like
Yeah, it's
that
all
used to be the
reactionary at this point.
that used to be the old school way to do it. Like now it's like people are like, "Oh, did you fight the guy after you laid a big hit?" It's like back in the day, it used to be like, "You hit one of our guys, we'll hit one of your guys." And then you go back and you tell them that's your fault. Like Knies easily could have like tried to line someone up, and he's a truck. Like if he really lined someone up, he could hurt them. It'd be a pretty quick conversation by the bench too. You skate by the bench, you look at Zadorov, and you say that's your fault. Touch another one of our guys, and instead Zadorov just kind of had free reign. But I still think that this is an important concept where we kind of look at the team and it's like who's leading you guys emotionally? Like it's not the captain. It's not the ex-captain. Like Tavares is playing really well, but he's never leading you emotionally. As much as people are like, as much as I hear the conversation of why did they take the captaincy away from this guy? It's like, did we forget what it was like under Tavares? Great, great player, but very robotic. Like he's not like stirring up emotion in you if that's what you're looking for. So if the barometer is like, why does this like emotionless team take the captaincy and give it to this guy when it should have been to that guy who did the exact same thing, even to a more dull degree, I would argue. But you kind of like look at them and it's like the confluence of like they're disjointed. There's a little bit of like they need someone to kind of take the, spiritual mantle, so to speak, and kind of like stir them up. And then there's just like the overarching urgency where I kind of like going into the Boston game, I thought it was a huge game, just given that they'd lost so much to the division already. And I caught myself thinking, like, do they think it's a big game? Like, did they go into that game where you went, like, they know that it's a big game? Did they play like it? Like, did they give anything to you in the first 10 minutes there that was like, this is a big one. Like we're ready to go.
No, I mean that it is hard because it's I think when you talk about this team and how they've looked, what you end up talking about a lot is the absence of things. And it's like, it is the absence of what you want to call it, like the heart or the identity or the passion, whatever you want to call it. When you're talking about a team that's like seems sort of fundamentally listless, when you start talking about it, I end up feeling like I'm an idiot. Like I feel like I'm just kind of spouting cliches and I'm not providing useful information because I'm just like the things that that I want to see, I'm not seeing. Like it's so much easier to talk about things that are happening, but like part of the story of the 2025-26 Maple Leafs so far is that like things are not happening for the season. And like the hockey is incredibly high event. Things are happening in the sense that pucks are going in nets. Pucks are always in the net, whether it's the Leafs net or the other net, the puck is in the net. Goal lights
They're
are going
scoring.
off. So things are happening in that sense, but there is this sort of underlying element. And, some of it is definitely about physicality, but not all of it is about physicality. Some of it's about work. Some of it's about
Yeah.
winning battles. Like, again, I feel like a cliche machine. I feel like someone who I don't know. Like I feel like the sort of person that I don't like listening to when I say these type of things. But I also think that you can't watch this team and not see that aspect of it. That like there just is sort of a fundamental lifelessness that exists with this group, and it's unavoidable. Like it is the kind of an elephant in the room, and that often gets dropped in the lap of coaching because like you're not on the ice with the guys, so like make them play inspired. Like that's your job, and that's not
Yeah.
happening. And that doesn't mean that like here on November 12th, I'm like they must fire Berube or else like the whole thing's going to shit. But it's like it is
Where
an
are you at with
indictment.
that? Where are you at with that conversation?
I think that I came into the Berube thing as a bit of a bit of a skeptic. Like I came in thinking like I don't know if they can make these guys into what he wants and I don't know if he's good enough that that should be the priority. Like again, like you can't take the ring away from him. And it's not like after the ring every season was a disaster with the Blues, but it's also not like he's a legend of the game either. And so being like, oh, let's fit it to this coach's identity always felt a little bit odd to me. But then, like last year, at a certain point, you can't argue too much with the results when they win the division. And so it's like you're kind of accepting it. I'm like, okay, sure, I guess this is working. But I think that I sort of felt like like you said, like Sheldon Keefe, and this is not like they should have kept Keefe because like his
No.
time ran out. His message ultimately didn't work out and the playoff success wasn't there. But I felt like a coach like him in a sense, but better. I don't know, like a better, more experienced Keefe might have been the way to go. Like play this version of hockey to some degree, but with I don't know, someone who has a little bit more experience, has been through some more battles. I don't know off the top of my head who that was going to be, but I was going to say that like I've always been, I think, lower on Berube than consensus, and now
Spit it out, man. Would you fire him or not? And when?
like today, I don't
No,
think
if
today, but
this year, this
I'm not
season,
far. Yeah.
and
I'm in
when?
that. I'm
What like
in.
what are you like? Because they don't look good enough right now to make the playoffs. And so, like, at what point are you like, I've seen enough? Like, we've got to change.
I don't know what the date is, what the record is, but like it could be before calendar turns to 2026. Like for me, like if they're
Yeah, I
this
mean,
bad in December, like mid late December, and like I saw Dom at the Athletic, his model was giving them a 38% chance of making the playoffs today. You can take that for what it is. That number does sound still a little bit low to me, but if we're getting to I don't know, December 19th. I could look at their schedule. I could find you a game, Anthony, and say if they lose this game 4-1, then Berube is gone. But like something
Yeah,
in
not a specific game, but like even like what you're saying is after Christmas to me, which sounds too late.
so you're pretty imminent then. Like
I,
you don't
like
need to see that much more.
I need to see a draft. I need to see a pretty notable shift like through up until American Thanksgiving for me. Because it's the style of play I just don't believe in, which we've talked about a million times. They need the puck more. They don't have the puck. They legitimately do not have the
It is
puck.
pretty good to have the
It's
puck. I don't
it's
want to be too controversial here,
in,
but it is pretty decent
in,
to have the puck.
in
It's
a
not bad.
simple game of do you have the puck or not, they do not have the puck.
No.
And I don't hear him valuing it at all. Like I don't hear him sitting like I hear him like bemoaning like defensive breakdowns and like rush defense, which are fair. Like those are valid concerns. But I don't hear him bemoaning like guys, we just literally did not have the puck enough. Like ever. And they've won so many games where they've done it where it would be so easy, especially I think coaches in Toronto are adverse to like admit things aren't right in certain scenarios because they don't want to give talking heads something to run with. But I think you can do it when you win, to me. Like you can win a game and be like, we won that game, but like we need to have the puck more if we want to continue to win
Yeah,
games.
it's okay to be like Willie bailed us out in that game
Yeah.
by scoring 2 goals in the third period, or like
And
Stolarz stood on his head, but we let them control the game, whatever the quote is.
and and I don't get that sense from him. So like philosophically, like I just disagree with that. Like I don't think he sits there from everything I've consumed of what he said and just overall their approach going into this season, right? Like I didn't hear a word from him about we got to have the puck more. Like that was not like a pressing concern for them. And that was a pressing concern for me because they didn't have it enough last year and then they lost a really good score. So you need to mitigate that by just having the puck more, period. And it hasn't come to fruition. And I don't necessarily see any indication of that changing. And so, you know, if they win a couple games, but they get outplayed, like that's not going to change my mind on anything. And look, I think people sit there and they go, how many coaches does this group need? And they've had 3 coaches in 10 years. That's not a lot.
Yeah, it's
That's
not
really not a lot.
absolutely insane. Like there's certainly franchises that go through
They're,
more.
they're not burning through these guys.
I've selected firing day, Anthony. Firing day for Craig Berube, if things have not turned around significantly, is December 12th, 1 month today, because they're going to go on a big road trip. It includes at Florida, at Carolina. Then they're going to come home to play the Canadians and the Lightning, 2 important games. Then on December 11th, they face the San Jose Sharks. If they lose to the Sharks after squandering some divisional games,
You're
that's
just
the
assuming
that's
that they're going to squander those divisional games now.
what reason do I
I,
have to believe that they won't at this point? That's the hammer drop. There's my
I,
official prediction. There you go. December 12th.
I, yeah, I mean, like, I wasn't necessarily looking for an exact date, more of like a check mark in the season kind of thing. Because I guess as part of that, I would say I am not ready to piss away this season. Like, I'm not there. I'm not there. If you thought the team
Well,
was just
let me know
terrible,
what Matthews' injury is, and then we can talk
yeah,
about pissing away the
yeah,
season or not.
if Matthews is like done for the year, but then magically is back for the Olympics because of course, and then you know just whatever, then sure. Then at that point, like you might as well just keep him bottom out. It is what it is. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're going to get healthy if anything over the coming weeks here. Knock on wood, no one else gets hurt, and we'll just you know try to go from there. But I could maybe have a little bit of leeway in terms of who's healthy over the next 3 weeks, but need to see like their overall play trend up because like I said, I'm not, provided guys are going to be healthy, I'm not ready to just throw away a season. And I don't think that they should be. And I also don't think that they should make a bunch of moves
No, it doesn't. I feel like,
without
yeah,
seeing.
the optimal path is probably between those things, right? It's not like giving up on the season, but it seems very unlikely that this group is going to justify some kind of big addition mid-season, and not that they even really have the ammunition to do it anyway. But it feels like you're kind of gonna ride with this group because there's, again, like I said, it's unlikely they're going to do enough between now and later the deadline. And this is all future conversation, but I think it's going to be kind of like, what can this group do? And it's not like, also they don't have, I don't know. People are thinking ahead. I've heard people talk about like selling and tanking and stuff like that. Like, we're not there yet. But even if they ended up in that world, they don't have a ton of movable stuff. Like, a lot of their guys are under contract over the longer term anyway, or at least guys that anyone else would want. And, obviously there's been talk of Carlo, but, Carlo's not playing his way into anyone's good graces around the league right now either. I don't think it's going to be very dramatic when it comes to in-season changes for this group.
No, I mean, well, I think if they really wanted to sell, they could, and there'd be a ton of teams interested in a ton of their pieces. That part I don't doubt. I
Well, but
just,
if you sell this year, you're not selling really expiring contracts so much. So
no, but that'd be the value of
you'd
it.
be
You're,
blowing it up. Like, there's a difference between like selling and blowing it up. Like, you'd be blowing things up pretty significantly.
I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of it just yet, but like, I
Fair. We
think,
are in November. It's November
I,
12th.
I think,
It's a whole month before firing day. We don't need to go there just yet.
I think a guy like Oliver Ekman Larsson would have a lot of value out there. Another year, 3.5 million, like, or another 2 years, right? So I think teams would be interested in that. Productive, has won a cup, can play the left and the right. Like, I think it actually helped them, some of these guys, with some term on their deals. Now, that said, I'm also, getting back to it, like I was looking at like Marner and like Pontus Holmberg's like underlying numbers on new teams, both way better than last year. Not newsflash. And I, like I said, I'd want to see guys in a different light because I just think that this style is weighing them down. It's not something that they're thriving in or excelling in or is positioning them for success. And look, I get it. People are sitting there going like, I don't want to bail these guys out with a new coach. Like, it's not bailing them out. Like, if you think Berube is doing a good job, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't. Like, we've talked so much, just like piss the lineup around for 3 weeks to start the year, and like nonsensical, like nonsensical. I'm sorry. Like, and we called it before the season started. Like, there's no retroactive. Like, this isn't like hindsight crap. It's like when he did it, I was like, I don't. We sat here, had a full conversation. I was like, I don't understand what he's doing. And then you watch the way that they play, and I'm like, I don't even know if you guys have a coach sometimes the way that you play. Like, if you just removed the coaching staff and then went on the ice and self-managed yourselves like a men's league team, I don't know if it looks drastically different than the shit that we're seeing. And I just, like I said, if you think he's doing a good job, then yeah, you're right. It would be bailing him out. It'd be like they don't like him and he needs to go. I actively do not think he's doing a good job. I've been on that train for a long time here. And I just don't really see any signs of it changing. Now, sometimes when you're actually losing, and this goes back to the urgency points, like you listen to McDavid, and look, Edmonton got lucky against Columbus. I'm not going to give them flowers for that like win that they pulled out of their ass. But going into the game, like McDavid was like, it's time. Like we got to start fixing things here. Like there was definitely a tone change to him, and he was unreal in that game. The rest of their team tried their absolute best to lose it, mostly, but McDavid was lights out. Like we haven't heard any of that from any of these guys. Like I don't know if anyone's sitting there like like we talk about Willie. Like Willie sat there, he's like, we score a ton. Like it's fine. Like we'll fix things defensively. Was pretty much his tone. It was like we have no problem scoring. Like this will all like work itself out. And I think that they have that tone as an overall group where it's like, guys, we've been in this situation before. It's a bit of a slow start. We'll just figure it out and like everything's okay. I think everyone else is sitting there going like, and I mean everybody else now, like the whole pretty much fan base, like guys, like you don't look good, and you've dropped a bunch of points to division rivals, and at some point you need to wake up here, and we're not really seeing any signs of like, oh crap, like you can't get outworked by the Bruins at home and then lose to them again 3 days later, and then embarrass yourself in between that to Carolina. Like it just can't happen. And there just hasn't been any level of urgency.
I'm afraid to tell you it very much can happen, because it
It
did
did happen, but it
happen.
shouldn't happen.
It certainly shouldn't happen. Yeah, it is a grim moment in time. And you know what? Maybe next time we record, things will feel slightly different. But, even last week, even when they had won those 3 games, it didn't feel like, "Oh, okay, this is all solved now." Like, it felt like, "Okay, here's a reprieve. Let's take a breath here. Maybe things aren't quite as bad as they seem." It wasn't like, "Okay, confidence that this group is going in the right direction, and I project that they're gonna crush it from here on out and get 100 plus points and be firmly, in the second wild card, or where not second wild card, second in the division or something like that." Like that point has never come. We have never, at no point this season have you been like, okay, this is locked in. This feels good. If they do what they're doing now, they will have success. It's not even like, have they had moments of success? Of course they have. They've won some games, but they've never had a moment where you're like, okay, all they need to do is just keep doing what they're doing right now, and then that's going to work. That's like, at no point has that felt realistic with this group. And yeah, a lot of that goes back to not controlling the puck, not playing in a way that feels sustainable, kind of relying on individual performances. Last year was often goaltending. This year it's often goal
The
scoring,
Utah game was
realistically.
the one game where I was like, that feels like a normal win to me.
Yeah, like it felt, but
Which
it,
was
it
the
was
last time we recorded, and I'm like,
it,
okay,
it
well,
was good, but it wasn't like, oh, they did it. Just this is it. They've arrived as a team. Like, I don't know. And
yeah,
like,
no, they'd have to string a bunch of those together to feel like that. That was the first time though where I was really like, okay, like I could get here with this. And then the next 3 games, they wet themselves. And
before we get out of here, let's check on the literal numerical value of the concernometer, because I feel like we've been circling it all episode. We've been talking pretty much constant concern. So let's put a numerical value on it. Anthony, where are you sitting at this moment?
7.25. Like it's
Seven two.
over a 7. I'm not ready to go 7.5. Before we record again, they'll play LA, and then they play Chicago on Saturday night. And then they play Berube's old team, St. Louis, who for me handed it to them twice last year. So
And
that was
who
saying
has
something.
not been as bad as the record suggests. Like, they've been in a goaltending hell, but
Yeah.
is not actually like that guaranteed win where you're like, oh yeah,
Like
that'll be an easy opponent at home. Like,
like
I could see them dropping that game, to be honest.
the concernometer is also the numbers dropping without us knowing the Matthews situation. Like if they come out tomorrow and they're like he's gonna miss at least a month, 8.5, it might be 9.
Yeah,
It,
it's that smart to bake in a Matthews
yeah.
contingency. I'll go with an uncharacteristic unusual number of 7.6 for my traditional concernometer, because
What is your logic there? How did
no
you
one
arrive at
I don't
7.6?
know. No one ever said that you had to use increments of 0.25.
If
I also think that 7.5 just feels like a very solid, I don't know, B plus or whatever. I wanted to go slightly above that. I do find things as they are very concerning. And then, yeah, I think the Matthews
if you
contingent,
made some 6-7 joke, I would have flown across the sea to punch you in the face.
there's
Like
no way. There's absolutely no way you're going to get that kind of joke from me. And then yeah, the Matthews contingency, yeah, you could get me into the high eights with that. Like if Matthews is out for an extended period of time, like
Yeah.
things could get they could get legitimately ugly like quite quickly.
Yeah. And my issue with that would be, well, then you have like the reasoning to not make other changes. You know, like they won't. I don't think they would fire him then. It'd be like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah, you get
Matthews is
the
hurt.
big time excuse.
Yeah, and
You
I
can dine out on that excuse for a while.
yeah. Whereas I'd sit there and be like, well, they've played this bad brand of hockey for a really long time, so what's the difference? But that's just me. So we'll see. I don't know. These are three. I mean, we said it last week. They they lost all three, but like these are three big games. Like they could win all three, and we could sit here and go like, all right, we're like playoff spots back on track. They could lose all three and go, all right, concern meter is a straight up like it's 9.75 out of 10. And they could split them in some garbage fashion. Like I don't know. I don't like you got to get
Splitting them
four
in
out of
some garbage fashion
meaning
feels
like you
right.
win one, you lose one in overtime or
Yeah.
whatever. Like to me, you got to get at least 4 points here coming out of these next three games. Like you got to win two of them. I don't care how. You got to find ways to wins right now.
All right, we're going to leave it there. We appreciate everyone who listens in. We like it even more when you're leaving ratings, reviews, watching on YouTube, where again, you'll get to see the angelic beam of light that has been with me for the entirety of this recording for reasons I can't really explain. And we'll be back with you again next week.